and welcome to the More Than Roommates podcast. I'm Dan here with my roommate Graham, and we have the star of the show, Pepper. Hopefully, we just got her in place, so she's already looking out the door to make sure there's nothing going on. But
she might be barking here before long.
Yeah, no one better approach the house. So, Graham, how are you doing?
I honestly finally feel like a human being again after literally like a day of hell.
You had a
being
pretty rough
so
Saturday.
hungover from 3 drinks. I'm in my early 30s and I'm at the point where 3 drinks are making me hungover for like multiple days. I'm done.
We were both really struggling. You were really, really struggling, but we texted some friends, wanted to go out, had a few drinks. We're very responsible, and
it was over 3 or 4 hours.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not like we were like binge drinking. We had like 1 drink per hour or less.
Right. Well, part of it is neither of us drink that much anymore. We're just kind of, you feel so bad the following day. I don't see the benefit of it. It didn't ruin our whole weekend. We still got a lot done. But,
surprisingly, we got a lot done.
But it still like really set us back and changed up our whole motion of everything.
Yeah. I don't know if y'all can tell, but I definitely broke some blood vessels under my eyes. It was, that was bad. It's like, I don't know, hangovers now, and I feel like the older I get, the earlier it starts.
Mm-hmm.
So it happens the same way for me every time now.
Yeah.
I'll go to bed, we went to bed at what, like 12:30? It wasn't that late. Maybe 1 at the latest.
Yeah.
But slept soundly until about 6:30 a.m. and then my body woke me up and my stomach was like kind of in knots. And after that it was just game over for like 4 hours, and every time I would like start to doze back off, my body would wake me up again.
And we definitely handle being sick slightly differently, but at one point we were doing the same thing. When I'm hungover, I cannot lay in bed and just think about how miserable I am. I need a distraction. So I'll pace, I'll get up, I'll walk around, or I'll like watch TikToks. And
I cannot handle the noise. So
I got up and laid on the couch because I knew I wasn't going to get back to sleep. And then you were just struggling.
I was. I finally started pacing around too, which is not really normal for me. I would say like the hangover intensity is getting worse the older I get.
For sure. And that's something we've been talking about a lot because, especially in the winter, there is not a lot to do as far as getting together with friends. It's just, you want to go to this restaurant? Do you want to go out and grab drinks? Do you want to come over and drink? So a lot of the culture is around drinking, and we're just not big fans of that. And yes, we can work on our willpower and just go out and just get a soda or
one
something.
Drink maybe and cut it off. But I think that was the problem, little peer pressure. Like I wasn't expecting like a round of 1 shot for everyone. Round of shots, but they were just like small, probably sugary. That's probably what made it worse, honestly.
So we were both we're trying to really look into just drinking culture and how that's so acceptable, but you see how your body reacts. Like you're truly poisoning yourself.
For real.
And then it's just so widely accepted to like, let's just go get sloshed and keep drinking. And
And it's just like empty calories too. We're really focusing on our fitness game again this year really hard.
Summer is around the corner.
Yeah. And it's just like, do I really want to drink a bunch of empty calories? Like not really. It's like not even, I don't know. It's not that fun.
No.
Going out is fun with friends, but like maybe I just like am making the decision now that I'm just going to stop drinking for like a long time, hopefully. But
until the wedding we go to in April.
Okay.
But
maybe we can make it like an occasional, like a special occasion kind of thing,
right? But, we definitely already don't drink during the week. Like it's not like we just get home and have a glass of wine or have a beer or anything. We don't do that. So I think it just I don't know.
Speaking of, I'm gonna harken back to 2020, when you kinda, like, first started staying here,
Yeah.
and there was nothing to do. Do you remember the massive quantities of liquor we were buying?
Yeah.
I think, a friend of mine and we went to the liquor store, and I think I spent, like, $130 or something on just, like, a bunch of different crap,
Yeah, we were having a
and
lot of
oof.
Bloody Marys, a lot of,
Yeah,
rum and
uh
cokes,
and
Moscow
your
mules.
Moscow mules,
Yes.
yeah, for sure. Yeah, I'm just kinda, like, made my
Over
peace
it.
with it, I'm sure, you know, 10-year ago version of me is probably laughing, just, like, the amount that we drink is just, like, nothing compared to, like, my Lindsay Lohan days, I guess, if you wanna say
Yeah.
that.
That's funny.
But, yeah, no. Yeah, I'm just done with it.
Okay, give me 1 second. Okay. So something I wanted to talk about today, and this is something that I kind of want to become a series on our podcast, is I really want to deep dive in to some of the stories that I did as a reporter and just to kind of talk about the behind the scenes, what led up to it. I just think it would be cool to like give some insight on like what really happened, spill the tea, kind of
Yeah.
expose what happened. I want to explain one of my first big stories that I did, and then if you have any questions about it, just feel free to chime in and ask
Yeah,
any
yeah.
questions. But I want to start off as a reporter. I only had a day to work on the stories. And so each shift was a different story, and I would do multiple stories in one day.
Whew.
So I never got
Yeah.
to really.
That's intense.
Yeah. Oh yeah. It was a very
Yeah.
strict schedule, but it also never allowed me to, do an in-depth story. I couldn't do an investigative piece. And so the other part of the news world, this is a little behind the scenes knowledge. So once or twice a year, this company checks in to how many viewers were watching during a specific newscast. They'll just pick a day nationwide and they'll check like the morning show and evening show. And that's how stations get ranked for the following year. That's why you'll see your local news station saying most watched weather show, or our morning show is the most viewers. So you don't know exactly what day is going to happen up until like a couple days before. So they call it sweeps season. And in preparation for it, since you don't know exactly what day, you want to have the best newscast possible. You want to have interesting stories that you can tease, like leading up to it, like tune in this Friday for this investigative piece. So we know that sweeps are coming, my news director gave us the challenge to come up with an in-depth story, which is like,
Like every day
no. We
or
had
on the estimated day
correct.
when
Well,
you
we
thought
would
it was
we
gonna
would
be?
pre-film and pre-edit it, and it would just sit in
Mm.
the on the computer until it was announced that they're gonna do sweeps on Tuesday. So then they just preload all that stuff, and then we can just have all this awesome stacked show.
It sounds like an excuse to make y'all work harder.
Well, I will say
Yeah.
I was excited for it
Okay, yeah,
because
that's
I
fair.
it was my first story that I could spend time on. So I would get 1 day a week that I didn't have to turn a story. I just could work on this big in-depth piece. And
But did you actually get that time?
rarely I would usually they would be like, "Oh, no, something's
We need to
happening."
send you out for a fire or
Yeah,
whatever.
exactly. So the first thing you're thinking is like, oh, there's a lot of pressure on this. What do you do? Like, what is a sweeps worthy story? So I really kind of sat with this, tried to figure out like what is going to be better than my day to day stuff. And I was still a new reporter. And it ended up that I was at a carnival, and they had like a petting zoo portion of it, and they had some horses, and I started talking to the people, and I got connected in the horse community, and someone reached out to me and they were like, hey, there's this guy that lives in a town up north, and he has, like, they thought he was abusing his horses.
Mm.
I'm like, "Okay." So
Did they say, like, in what way?
they
Or
said that they were very skinny and that their only source of water was this little pond,
ew.
and, it wasn't big enough for the amount of horses that they had, and it was freezing over, and recently, a horse got stuck in the mud of the thing, and they had to
Mhm.
get a fire truck to lift the horse up out of the water to rescue it, and they said multiple horses have drowned in this little pond.
That's evil.
So I drive up and I find the farm. I see the horses. I'm not a horse expert, so I can't say whether or not what I'm seeing is bad. It didn't look the best, but who knows? I also can't see all the acreage of the farm, so there could be a better spot. I try to talk to the guy. He doesn't want to talk.
I mean, why would he?
Right.
Yeah.
And then I talk to the neighbors, get their side of it, and then this video goes viral of the horses being pulled out of the pond. And it's pretty insane video. I'll include it in between us above Pepper's head. Um,
She's snoozing now.
so the sheriff's department kept getting called to this farm. I got the records of each incident. Sometimes they said there was an issue, sometimes they said it wasn't an issue. It ended up that like 3 of the 45 horses were taken away from him, and
Wow.
he was being charged with some
Like animal
animal abuse.
neglect
Yeah.
or abuse, yeah.
And this is when the sheriff's office really started to hate me because
Why would they hate you?
I was stirring the pot. I was posting these stories or
Okay, but you're bringing attention to a real issue, like an
but
animal
it was kind of
issue.
like a uh, you know,
Like, putting, like, pressure on them to have to do something about it? Like, they
they
didn't wanna do their job?
no, not that.
Okay.
I think they felt that I was just a city boy that didn't understand what goes into taking care of farm animals. I think they thought I was too soft, essentially. And then they're like, no, these horses are fine. But because I kept doing these stories and posting videos about what was happening, it got neighbors upset and neighbors were calling. They just thought they were handling it and I was only adding fuel to the fire.
Okay.
Well, I didn't let up.
But would they have done anything
It,
had you not intervened? I
Exactly. It
mean,
would have kept going on. They would have kept
yeah.
getting these calls. So finally, when I post that this is going on, they end up taking all of the 45 horses away from him. And he's now being charged with 45 counts of animal abuse.
Whoa.
Yeah, it was
Yikes.
intense.
Would not wanna be that dude.
And so I am gathering all this information. I reach out to him and I'm like, hey, now that this is your time to make your voice heard about like what's really been going on. And I actually got in touch with his lawyer and convinced his lawyer to let him talk to me on camera.
Oh,
So
wow.
I actually interviewed him and he was claiming that all the horses are fine, everyone's too soft, da 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 da. And
And you're fake news, right?
exactly. Well, no, he was nice to me. He kinda
Okay, yeah.
understood why I was doing it because I did give him the opportunity to say his say what was going on, and, a big part of the news is I wanted to be unbiased. So,
Huh?
I even
Yeah.
I was editing this story together, and I realized that a lot of the evidence was leaning against him. So, I called his lawyer, and I was like, "Look, it's not looking too good, so I would like to have some more information." And so she sent me stuff, so I felt like it really balanced out. I think if you watch these stories, I think I don't know, you wouldn't know. I would even have friends of mine coming up to me and saying like, "What do you think?" Because they couldn't tell how I personally was feeling about this situation, which I thought was a good job. And so I'm doing all this stuff. I'm preparing this really epic investigative piece of how I've gotten all this documentation. I've got lawyers' records, and
Really doing a thorough job.
yes. And
Yeah.
so I'm putting it
It's
all together.
impressive.
Thank you.
Yeah.
It was very cool. It was very awesome. I felt like I was advocating for these animals that wouldn't have normally had the help. But my boss was like, we can't air this story until we follow up with how these horses are doing now. And I'm like, okay. So I start asking around and I can't find these horses. And so I look in the town and there's only like 2 animal vets. So I drive to both of them. And when I show up, they're like, I know who you are. The sheriff told us we can't tell you anything.
Okay, since when can a sheriff, like,
He thought
command that you have no free will? Like,
exactly.
what?
So
That's insane.
I was like pleading. I'm like,
So, did they talk to you or no?
no, they were like, no, I know who you are. You can't come in here. You're not going to help this situation. And I'm like, I'm just trying to check up on my horses.
Wow.
So I'm like at a dead end and I'm like talking to my boss and I'm like, please, can I like still air this story? I think it's really good. We didn't know when sweeps were coming and I was worried that my story was going to become outdated. Like I
Yeah.
have all this investigative, the trial's going to start. And he's like, no, you have to find the horses. So on a random day, the guy who owned the horses, who was being charged, called me on my cell and he's like, I know where my horses were taken. They're to this girl's farm that's like 20 minutes away. I will take you there. And so I'm like, okay. And this
I
is,
would have been scared for my life.
I
I'm
was,
just gonna stop and cut in right there because, oof.
I know.
Like, did you follow him?
So this is
It's
where,
like, follow me into the woods.
so all my coworkers,
I won't shoot you.
yeah, it was definitely pretty jarring. All my coworkers were
Ooh.
freaked out, but again, I was by myself, so I told them the location that I thought I was going to be at. He didn't give me an address. He said he. So I show up to his farm, and he's like, "Okay, let me hop in your car." And I'm like, I don't think that's allowed. I can't be
Yeah.
driving you around."
It's a liability,
So he
dude.
got in his car, and I just drove and followed him for a while, and then we ended up at this farm and I could see his horses. And so this is where it's important to know what the law is. Public roads are public property. The second I step off that public road onto their property, I'm trespassing. So I had to really utilize the zoom on my camera, which actually had a really good zoom. So he ended up having a police scanner headset and binoculars, and he was the lookout. Even though I was legally had the right to be there, it's still just like, okay, I know if the sheriff shows up, he's gonna shoo me away. So he's like keeping a lookout. I'm like getting as much footage of these horses as I can possibly get because I've been looking for him for so long and I don't want to lose it. I
What
think
a turn, by the way, like, just in events,
yeah, that
like,
he's the one that
that
helped
he's
me.
helping you, like,
That's
after,
what I'm saying. I felt like
I
I was doing a good job, that he was
yeah.
still coming to me, because he felt like at this point he needed his 2 cents out.
Yeah, you have to have both sides, and
Yes.
hopefully people realize that,
Yeah, and if
but
you look at a lot of my bigger stories, I hope you can see that I do really try to get both sides.
yeah,
So
not pick the side that riles everyone up, and then,
and
yeah,
it was hard to take my personal beliefs out of there because I am a huge animal advocate. I love animals.
just look at her if you're watching on
Yeah,
YouTube.
Pepper is an angel, but I love all animals. And so, I still wanted to give him his side because he hadn't been convicted. He had just been charged. So I got the horses on video. Mission accomplished. So I edited it all together and we don't know when sweeps are coming, but then it's announced that if he is found guilty and the horses are taken away from him, the horses will go up for auction to be
Mm.
sold. If any of those horses did not sell at the auction, they could have been taken away to be slaughtered because there would be no one to take care of them.
That's even worse.
Yes, it was awful. So it was like out of the
Ugh.
fire into the, how does the phrase go? Out of the
Yeah,
oven into the fire, something like that.
something like that,
So I
yeah.
was like, oh shoot. So this is when I finally get to actually air parts of, I like had a 3-part series all filmed. So I'm like, okay, these horses were taken away, but this isn't where the story ends. Now, if they don't sell, they're going to be slaughtered. And so, of course,
Mm.
that got everyone riled up. And
Yeah,
so, of course, they all sold at the auction because I
yeah.
had created enough buzz around him, around these
Wow.
horses. So that felt good. And then I'm trying to think if I actually got to sit in on his trial. I think I can't remember. I did sit in on a few trials. I loved sitting in on trials. It was very interesting to watch all of that unfold. But he was arrested he was charged with like 45 counts of animal abuse, and he was supposed to spend a year in jail. I think he just
Wow.
got his sentencing reduced to 2 month or 2 years probation, and then a lot of fines because he had to pay for the care of the horses while they were out of his care. And I don't think he's ever allowed to um, own horses again, if I'm not mistaken. But it was real,
Rightfully, yeah,
yeah.
you would think. I
But
mean,
it felt like I truly felt like a journalist at that point. When you get court documents or like legal papers, you have to physically go to the city hall and purchase them.
do you remember that time I went with you?
Yes,
Yeah, it
yeah.
was actually kind of cool.
Yeah, exactly. You feel like so
Yeah.
you can't ask them over email, "Hey, can you send me those court documents?" You have to like go in and they charge you for printing it. And I remember I've kind of talked about how I was struggling financially. So I had to physically pay for them to print off all this court documents. Now, of course, my company would reimburse me, but you have to have the
But
money.
still,
Yeah.
yeah.
So it was like less than $5 to print all this paper. I didn't have $5 in my bank account. I remember
Ugh.
I ran back into my car and I was looking in the company car and I found enough loose change in the car to pay for it. But that's how dedicated I was. I spent literally my last few dollars into getting these court records so I could prove, what was being said because you had to fact check everything. But it was definitely cool to be able to convince him that to do with this. Of course, the lawyer, after he was found guilty, hated me. She's like, I shouldn't have. I
Like,
did.
spoken with you? Like,
Yes,
I
I
mean,
did sit in on that trial. Yeah, it was crazy.
so how long, like, did the trial happen? Like, months, I'm assuming, after the
Yeah.
original, like, charges
Yeah, I
and all
remember I
that?
went in there a few times to watch it. So there was um more than one
Like, hearing or
hearing, and
proceeding,
yeah.
or we need our friend to get in here and
Yeah, and
tell us
tell
about the
us.
legal
And
process.
that's yeah, it was so cool,
We should
but
have her on
oh,
sometime.
for sure.
She can talk to you guys about Gypsy. She's sued.
Yeah, oh, she legally can.
Oh, yeah, true.
But yeah, so it was just a very cool experience to, get justice to the animals. And then after that, people were always hitting me up. I became known as the horse reporter because once people saw that I could, get justice for animals, I learned a lot about what the care of horses are and what legally can happen. And since we're in a rural area, there are a lot of horses and farms. So
And they're majestic animals. Like, you
mhm,
look at them, they're tall, broad, like, they're usually really pretty, their hair and everything.
yeah.
It's, yeah, hard to believe that someone would want to have that many horses on their property and then not take care of them. What is the point?
He was breeding them for racing.
Mm,
So he thought he had all these purebred horses and he was going to sell them
okay.
for racing.
Okay, but are they going to be a top quality, animal for racing if they're not, receiving proper nutrition and hydration,
Right.
It's crazy. But
And so the next story that I did was ended up being a crazy experience as well. Was years later someone reached out and said that there was a little micro pony, like a small pony,
mm,
and its hooves weren't being trimmed. And at first you're
mm.
like, okay.
I didn't even know you had to trim hooves, by
Yeah.
the way, until I think I saw a video on like TikTok or IG Reels or something. But
Right.
it's kind of interesting. But
Right.
yeah, so
And so it's like trimming their toenails, but if you don't trim it, it literally will grow out like a
like a
corkscrew. And I learned after investigating it that it can eventually kill the horse if it's left because the way their foot will bend, it'll just keep it's called coffin foot or
oh,
coffin hooves. And it'll just bend on the tendons so much that then they won't be able to walk anymore.
aw, that's
So it was
sad.
important that we looked into this. And so
Yeah.
people sent me pictures of the pony, and I was getting ready to go to this guy's house, and my source told me that he was very aggressive and he had just pulled a gun on some people that were trying to get pictures of the horse themselves.
And let me guess, they sent you into the
By
fire by yourself
I went by
again.
myself. So I actually have I think I still have the video. I'll put it in if I have it. Um I was recording it on my phone as I approached the house, just in case something happened, I would have it on camera. And I knock on the door, and the guy opens it, and it's this really, really old man, and he's super friendly. He's like, "Oh my gosh, I know who you are. Come in, come in." And at first, I would, you
Yeah.
wouldn't enter the house, but you got to do this little dance with the people. You don't want to seem too closed off because then they won't open up to you. So I, against my better judgment, walked into the house. I followed him,
Yikes.
and he immediately slams the door shut and locks it.
Ugh.
And so all the hair on my back is like
Yeah.
on the back of my neck, on my back.
I would have like shit my pants.
I was so I'm instantly like, okay, next thing is get out. I don't care about this
It-
anymore. I just need to get out of here.
Yeah.
But I don't want to like freak out. So he's like, I know who you are. You're with the mafia. Da-da-da. And
The mafia.
He turns around, swings a door open, and he has papers stacked from the floor to the ceiling of documents.
Oh.
And he is a giant conspiracy theorist. And he's like, he keeps diverting the conversation to talk about how people are after him and all these stuff. And I'm like, I'm freaking
Yikes.
out.
Maybe he has schizophrenia or
It
something.
seemed like something like that. And so he, of course, is not letting me see the horse. I'm like, I don't care about this horse at this point. I care about saving myself. And I'm like trying to get out. And he's like, do you have a business card? And I'm like, yep, here's my business card. And he looks at it and he's like, do you have a middle name? And I'm like, yes. He's like, well, why isn't it on here? You're providing identity fraud or identity theft or something like that. You're concealing your
What?
identity. I'm like, sir, that's for my own protection. I
Yeah.
didn't know what to say. And as soon as I left, he wrote up this big long document.
Okay, but also you're a public figure at that point too. Like, what is he?
I know.
Like,
I was like,
what
dude,
sense does that make? Like,
yeah, he was
dude, I have a professional Facebook page.
right. And so
Ugh.
at that point, as soon as I left, he did unlock the door. He let me go. It wasn't like, it was still
Ugh.
scary. For every minute you're in there, you feel like it's been eternity.
How
And
long do you think you were actually in
a
there?
pretty long time, like 15
Like,
minutes.
oh.
Like, because we kept going round and round. I couldn't find a way to like
Like,
get out,
divert the
yeah.
convo. Yeah, yikes.
And so he immediately wrote up this official document saying that I had 24 hours to provide him with all the information I had been given. And if he didn't, or if I didn't, he would be suing me. And it was just very weird. And I ended up doing the story with the evidence that I had because the sheriff's office was investigating. So I could take all their information from their report. But yeah, I told my boss, I'm like, I'm not going back there by myself. And it was
good for you.
Mhm. And they were nice as far
Okay.
as like, they're like, okay, like they're like, are you okay? Do you need me to send someone down there? We didn't know it was going to be as extreme as it ended up, but it was very alarming. But
Yeah.
I'll do it for those horses.
Yeah.
I'll put myself on the line.
So, do you remember how that shook out?
I don't think he received charges. It was hard
Mhm.
to prove, and I think it was as simple as like getting the hooves trimmed, and then it was
Do you
like,
think they did, or he?
I
Had it
hope
done?
so. I
Yeah.
don't know. Some of those things you just kind of like never hear what ends up happening. I put the word out, but
Yeah.
yeah, I don't think he was found guilty of anything. So that's why it's hard with animal cases because you do one thing and then it's okay, it's fine. You trimmed their hooves.
And
Which I
then-
mean, and if that's all
yeah.
it took for him to learn his lesson,
I mean, they have to resolve the complaint.
Yes.
Beyond, they can't just, take an animal away.
right. Well, and
Yeah.
there are some loopholes because legally for a care of a farm animal, it has to have food and water and a shelter. Well, you don't have to take them to the vet. And what if they have gum disease and they can no longer eat? Like that, it's not
So-
illegal to not get them dental care. So there's gray areas like, okay, they have food and water, but they're so sick they can't eat. So is that not abuse because you're not taking care of them properly?
Yeah.
There's no law. From my understanding, again,
It could have changed.
I'm not an expert, and that's why it was challenging. Every day you're doing a different story and you have to learn as much as you can about the topic before your story so you don't look like a fool, and also you're representing what you can well.
Right. Yeah.
So yeah.
I couldn't imagine having that responsibility. Like, that's just a lot. I mean, it's a
Yeah.
lot of, like you said, potentially dangerous situations. And you're like, running around nonstop, and like you said, you have to know kind of the at least basics of what you're getting yourself into. I
Mhm.
just, man, I'll stick with the spreadsheets. I'm good.
Yeah, it was fun. I definitely don't feel like I could have kept doing that in the long run because it was so exhausting and it was so underpaid that it's like, okay,
Yeah, if you literally cannot afford a $5 copy, like,
right.
for something you're working on, that ain't it, like,
No. And
oof.
so, yeah, my hope is to find another way to be able to make a difference like this. And I'm hoping this podcast might be a way for us to, because, like, once you become an influencer of any sort, you have some power. So hopefully,
Platform,
yeah,
yeah.
once we have a platform, we could use it to advocate for stuff. I'm on a really big eco kick right now. So we've been really doing some eco-friendly stuff in the house. I could do a whole
Yeah,
episode talking about what we've been doing to implement that. But I'm hoping to just once we get a bigger audience to, bring on advocates or, bring on people who want their story shared. Like that would be
yeah,
the ultimate goal for this
bring up
podcast.
real issues and, other experience.
Yeah, let people share their
Yeah,
stories. Right now we've been focusing on our gay coming out and
and
everything
just
that
our life together, yeah.
yeah, and so there's so many facets that we can talk
There
about.
are, yeah. We have a lot of people in our lives too, so,
Yeah, and I've
yeah.
made some connections in the news industry, and I hope to, have those people come on and talk about their stories. It's a lot harder to talk about stuff, especially when you're still stuck in contract world and all of that. So, it'll definitely
It's
be
messy.
yes.
Yeah, speaking of lawyers.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, no.
But can I point out it's been like 30 minutes and Pepper has been
Sound
laying with
asleep.
us.
Her eyes have been closed
Yeah,
pretty much the whole time.
she usually likes to be asleep with a blanket on her, so it's been
Yeah.
crazy that she's just cuddled up here without one.
We wanted our viewers to be able to see her
She
if
is the
you're,
true star of the
yeah.
show. Also, can I just point out my Taco Bell shirt? I just got this from Target. I'm obsessed. And you got
It's cool.
is
Yeah.
that from Target?
Yeah, it is.
That's,
I'm like a good fellow gay at this point.
yeah.
I've
So
spent a lot of money on clothing in the past, and it ends up going out of style after a few years anyway. So
yeah, and I hang
get
on to
the
clothes, so I'm just like
I do too. Ugh,
Target is my way to go.
yeah.
While I'm looking at the Taco Bell, so Taco Bell for sure is my favorite fast food. What about you?
Ooh, yeah. Taco Bell is definitely like a top choice for me. I don't know if I really have a fast food favorite though, because sometimes I'm in the mood for something else.
Yeah.
Okay, how about Five Guys? Is that fast enough to where that counts?
Yes, I
I
would
mean, it's not like
because when
drive through, obviously,
right, but
but
when I'm going for fast food, Five Guys is in the rotation,
their
if that makes sense.
fries are so good. Better than
It's
anywhere.
just so
That's what,
expensive.
yeah, it
They really
is.
have gotta have some cheaper options.
Yeah.
Like
Although we've been doing good too, like I think we're realizing the mindset of like the average American, just as far as like how much food we really consume, and we're probably like eating beyond what
we should be.
we need, like, so we've been ordering like their like little hamburgers, and just like splitting like a small fry,
Yeah,
instead of like trying to get like a huge,
mm,
whatever meal. It's
and
just, and then you feel sick, kind of, like you eat and you're like, oh, this is so good, I'm gonna keep eating. And then by the time you get done, like within like 5 minutes, I'm like, oof,
and
why did I do that to myself?
yeah, and that's kind of where you're raised. We weren't raised that way, but like when you're at the fast food, you might as well. It's so cheap just to get a large, and you want to make sure that you aren't hungry afterwards. So you'd rather
Yeah,
buy a couple more dollar burgers than not. And so that's been something we've been trying to check ourselves with. Like, okay, we don't
portion
need
control, man.
3 burgers,
Yeah,
even though it's good. We really could be fine with
and
a medium
we
fry.
really don't eat a ton of fast food. Like we are definitely on like a cheat
Mm-hmm.
weekend. We're switching up our weightlifting routine. So I don't know if we're gonna start that today or tomorrow, but usually I like to take a week off when I switch programs.
Yeah.
So I feel like crap, man. Like,
Yeah, I know. And we've
yeah,
been good about meal prepping and just keeping
Yeah.
food stocked in the fridge so that we aren't tempted, because that's where we go
Hmm.
wrong. Once we run out of food, we're like, okay, let's just go get some Taco Bell. Of course,
Yeah.
I'm a big advocate for that. I do want us to do
Taco
a
Bell, we're looking at you for sponsorships.
right. I do want us
Uh,
to do an episode about your fitness and my fitness journey, but you've had like quite the extensive fitness journey and talking about how you got in shape and all of that. I think that would be fairly cool. We
yeah.
could use your pictures in the thumbnail, get some clicks using your sex appeal, all that
Okay.
stuff. That'd be
All
good.
right. If you want to gas me up, I
Oh
mean,
yeah.
I can talk.
Yeah. Well, is there anything
Yeah.
else you wanted to discuss today?
I don't think so. Going back to horses, I would love to like go ride horses.
Yeah.
Like one of my best friends in high school, Bridget, she had a horse, and I
No.
always thought it was so cool. Like just like watching her and like listening to her talk about her relationship with that horse, I think
Yeah.
it'd be really cool. But
So I was in Boy Scouts and we went to New Mexico backpacking in Philmont. Really most amazing experience of my life. We were backpacking for 2 weeks, carrying all of our food and clothing. Also, it's one of the most haunted places in the US. So I've got some ghost stories, but we'll have to wait till
okay.
Halloween season before we
Okay,
share
yeah,
those.
that's
But
fair.
we went backpacking, or sorry, we'll give you some
Hey, scratch.
ASMR pet scratches.
She said, "What is this?
What is
Can I
this?
eat it?"
She used to always go for my microphone covers. So we went horseback riding and it was painful. The
Oh, wow.
saddle really hurts after a while. And we were all in like a row. There was like 14 of us. So we were just in a line trotting through. And my brother's horse was in front of me and it kept farting. And it was like sewage. Like I could see it happening every time. And I'm just like, oh.
Oh no.
And then his horse kept going off the path, so I had to like make mine stop and then wait for him to get his under control.
I would have switched places as soon as that
I tried to,
happened.
but I couldn't command my horse. Like
Oh,
he was,
yeah.
and then my horse, when we were crossing a river, he decided that was a good spot to pee. So we're not river, it was like a creek, but we're over rushing water. And then my horse starts leaning back, and I'm like, "Is it gonna dunk me?"
Yeah.
And no, and then I hear, and he just started unloading the floodgates. I'm like, "Okay, I see
Oh
you."
man. Yeah.
But yeah,
wild.
that was
So on the topic of horses, you've got to throw in that video of you on the horse when you were live on TV.
okay. Yep.
That is like classic Dan,
Yeah.
like media horseman Dan.
Yes, I did do some. It was a huge horse. It was like 25 years old and just a monster of a horse. And so I'll include that. Going. They say never go live with animals because you'll never know what they do. And I remember I'll put in both of them. I was on a horse multiple times, but on news they call it a box in box. So the anchor is in one side of the screen and then I'm on the other. So I had to be perfectly in the center of my
Where your
camera.
camera.
Yeah, but I'm on a horse. And I remember being like, I had to be in place like 10 minutes before I was live. So I'm just sitting on this horse, hoping he doesn't move so he's not in the center of the screen. And then my producer comes in my ear and she's like, "Do you mind like backing up like a couple inches?" And I'm like, "I'm on a horse." Like, no. But we did it. We made it work. So
Yeah, you probably had you tried, I'm sure that horse would have just like ran off.
I know. Well, and I had a corded mic.
Oh,
And so
man,
of
you
course,
were really just like us. You were,
yeah.
like,
And
yeah,
so
playing a dangerous game.
and I was at a Renaissance fair with the horse. And so, of course, a crowd gathered around me because it was quite the sight to see. And some girls were by my camera. And I'm like, "Girls, if this horse takes off, go for the camera. Don't protect me. Go for the camera." Because my plan was to just drop the mic if he starts running so I don't yank the camera over. But he didn't. He was good.
Yeah,
But yeah, that was quite the show.
that's awesome.
Yeah.
It's really cool. Yeah.
Pepper, do you have any thoughts? She doesn't.
Said, "Oh yeah, I'm tired."
Well, I want to thank you guys for watching episode 7. We are
Climbing to 10. We're gonna
getting
get there
close.
a couple of weeks.
and we are close to halfway to my subscriber goal for the year on YouTube. So if you're
Thank you,
watching it on
guys.
Spotify, maybe go click on this on YouTube, More Than Roommates, and subscribe. My goal is to hit 100 subscribers by the end of the year. we're almost to 50, so that would be like incredible to get there with only like a month in. So,
Yeah, for sure. We'd
make
appreciate it.
yeah, so make sure you guys are sharing, keeping up with us, and all that stuff. But
Even if you just want to be nosy.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, I know those
We're
people.
putting it out there, so.
Yeah, you want to check.
But you
in on
better
those people.
subscribe if
Yeah.
you want to be nosy.
Yeah, help us out.
Yeah,
Okay,
please.
well, thank you for tuning in.
Yep. Save a horse.
Whoa.